The longer a woman has been alone, the higher her standards naturally rise, not because she becomes impossible to please, because she finally understands the value of her own peace, her own time, and her own energy. When a woman spends months or years without a relationship, she goes through a quiet evolution that most men never notice. She begins to see herself in a clearer mirror. She notices the things she tolerated in the past, the things she allowed because she feared losing someone or because she didn't yet know her own worth. Time alone strips all that away. It sharpens her awareness, it matures her emotionally, it teaches her to stop negotiating with her boundaries. This is why men often feel like women who've been single a long time are too picky. They're not too picky, they're finally awake. A woman who has walked alone learns to meet her own needs. She learns to comfort herself when she's sad, to cheer herself when she's tired, and to motivate herself when life gets hard. She learns to build a life that doesn't revolve around another person's validation. She stops chasing love and starts choosing it. And because of that, she will not settle for a man who brings stress instead of stability, confusion instead of clarity, or fear instead of security. Her standards rise because she becomes her own source of strength. She no longer needs a man to complete her. She needs a man who complements her. During her time alone, she becomes more disciplined with her emotions. She becomes more careful with her words. She pays attention to patterns, not words. She observes energy, not promises. She will listen to what a man says, but she will follow what a man does. If he is inconsistent, she won't argue with him. She will distance herself. If he is disrespectful, she won't try to change him. She will remove herself. If he shows hints of immaturity, she won't entertain it. She will let silence make the decision for her. A woman who has been alone is no longer impressed by effort that lasts only a few days. She is impressed by consistency, leadership, emotional presence, and real masculine direction. What men don't understand is that her rising standards aren't about rejecting love, they're about protecting it. She wants something real. She wants something that feels safe, something that feels like home, something that doesn't feel like she has to shrink herself just to make the relationship work. She won't accept half love or halfway commitment. She won't be the only one trying. She won't ignore red flags just because she's lonely. She has felt loneliness. She has lived through it. And she has learned that being alone is far better than shrinking herself for the wrong man. This rising standard also means she demands emotional intelligence. She needs a man who can communicate without shutting down, a man who can be vulnerable without feeling weak, a man who leads with strength but loves with softness. She needs a man who respects her independence rather than feeling threatened by it. Men who are insecure cannot handle women like this. Men who rely on control or manipulation cannot keep women like this. Only a man who is truly grounded in his own purpose, his own confidence, his own values can meet her where she is. The man who, to enter her life after she has built herself up, must match the life she has created for herself. He must bring peace, direction, stability, and emotional strength. He must be someone she can trust, someone she can lean into without fear, someone whose presence makes her life better, not heavier. And once she finds a man who understands her worth, respects her boundaries, and values her heart, she will give him a level of love that is deep, loyal, powerful, and rare. Because a woman with high standards doesn't love often, but when she does, she loves with her whole soul. Only the man who rises to meet her standards will ever earn that kind of love. When a woman has been single for a long time, she becomes incredibly skilled at protecting her heart, not out of fear, but out of deep self respect. She learns to guard her emotions the same way someone guards a precious treasure, carefully, intentionally, and with wisdom earned through experience. This doesn't mean she becomes cold or closed off, it means she becomes selective. She becomes mindful of who she allows into her world because she knows how much peace she has built, how much healing she has done, and how rare it is to create a life where her happiness doesn't depend on anyone else's presence. She's not hard to get, she's hard to fool. Over time, she grows more aware of emotional patterns. She can sense manipulation faster. She can recognize when someone is inconsistent. She can feel when someone's energy is off, even if their words sound perfect. She learns to trust her intuition more than sweet talk, more than empty promises, more than temporary affection. A woman who has walked alone knows the price of ignoring red flags. She has lived through situations where her kindness was taken advantage of. She has survived moments where she gave too much and received too little. Those experiences teach her to protect her emotional space, like her life depends on it, because in many ways it does. She no longer gets impressed by quick attention or sudden affection. She pays attention to consistency, effort, and emotional maturity. She watches how a man reacts when things get difficult, not just how he behaves when everything is easy. She notices whether he listens, whether he respects her boundaries, whether he communicates without blaming or withdrawing. She protects her heart by observing before she invests. She lets a man reveal himself through his actions. And when she sees something that doesn't align with her peace, she's not afraid to walk away. This is where many men misunderstand her. They think she's stubborn or overly cautious, but really she's simply done being hurt by carelessness. A woman who has been alone for years also understands emotional balance. She knows when to give and when to pull back. She knows not to lose herself in someone else's world. She knows that love is not an excuse to abandon her identity. She protects her heart by staying grounded in who she is, her values, her routines, her friendships, her growth. She does not allow a relationship to become her entire life because she has spent so long building a life she genuinely enjoys. This emotional independence is what makes her powerful. It's what prevents from being controlled, manipulated, or pressured into becoming someone she's not. She also protects her heart by setting standards and enforcing them. She has learned that boundaries only work if she follows through. So when someone disrespects her limits, she doesn't argue, she distances. When someone plays games, she doesn't chase, she disconnects. When someone tries to test her patience with half effort, she simply stops giving access. Her heart is not a playground, so she no longer entertains men who come with childish intentions. She doesn't need drama. She doesn't need validation. She doesn't need someone to complete her. A woman who has been alone knows that her heart is safest when she is true to herself. But here's the deeper truth. Even though she protects her heart fiercely, she is not incapable of love. She is not bitter. She is not shutting the world out. In fact, she is preparing for the right kind of love, the kind that doesn't require her to shrink, the kind that doesn't drain her emotionally, the kind that feels like partnership, not sacrifice. When she finally meets a man who approaches her with sincerity, consistency, effort, and emotional intelligence, she will let her guard down, not all at once, but slowly, genuinely, and beautifully. She protects her heart not to avoid love, but to make sure she gives it to someone who is truly worthy of it. She just refuses to let the wrong person hold what she worked so hard to heal. As time passes and a woman remains single, something powerful begins to happen inside her. She reconnects with herself on a deeper level than she ever thought possible. She starts rediscovering who she truly is without the noise, without the expectations, without the emotional weight of someone else's presence shaping her choices. She becomes grounded, centered, and fully aware of her inner world. She begins to appreciate her own company in a way that feels liberating instead of lonely. And this shift, this rising sense of inner stability, is exactly what makes her more selective and harder to sway when someone finally enters her life again. She starts to understand her own patterns. She notices why certain relationships drained her. She recognizes where she overextended, where she tolerated disrespect, where she lost pieces of herself trying to keep someone else. The silence of singlehood gives her clarity that relationships often blur. She sees her own worth without needing anyone to remind her of it. This self awareness becomes the foundation of a stronger, wiser version of herself. When she eventually meets someone new, she doesn't walk into that relationship blind, she walks in awake. And in that awakening, she becomes emotionally self sufficient. She no longer needs constant reassurance to feel secure. She stops depending on someone else to validate her emotions or make her feel important. She begins creating her own happiness slowly at first, then powerfully. She pours energy into her friendships, her goals, her health, her passions. She finds joy in small routines, peace in solitude, and strength in overcoming challenges alone. By the time someone tries to win her heart, she already has a life full of meaning, a life she won't abandon for temporary affection. She also develops a deeper sense of patience. She's not in a rush to fall in love because she's learned that rushing only leads to heartbreak. She understands that anything real takes time. She knows that emotional connection should grow naturally, step by step, through shared effort and mutual understanding, not pressure, not desperation, and not fear of being alone. Her patience becomes her filter. It pushes away the ones who want something quick and superficial, and it attracts the ones who are ready for something sincere and long lasting. And because she has matured emotionally, she stops confusing attraction with compatibility. She knows the difference between someone who excites her and someone who respects her. She knows that butterflies are not the same as safety. She knows charm is not the same as character. A woman who has spent years healing, growing, and learning becomes someone who values emotional intelligence over smooth words, consistency over intensity, and actions over intentions. She recognizes the type of man who complements her growth, and she also recognizes the type she must distance herself from. This inner stability also gives her confidence, the kind that isn't loud or attention seeking, but calm and undeniable. She no longer worries about being liked. She worries about being understood. She no longer tries to be perfect. She tries to be authentic. She no longer fears losing someone. She fears losing herself. And because she carries this grounded confidence, the people who come in her life feel it. Some will try to test it, others will admire it, and the right one will align with it. Her emotional growth becomes a shield, not a wall, but a boundary made of wisdom. It protects her from repeating old mistakes, from accepting half hearted effort, from letting anyone disturb the peace she has built. And ironically, it is this very piece that makes her so attractive to the right man. He sees her independence, he sees her emotional maturity, he sees her strength, and this inspires him to rise to her level, to bring his best, to approach her not with games but with intention. Because by the time love comes again, she is no longer a woman who needs saving. She is a woman who knows exactly who she is. With time, a woman who has been without a relationship learns something incredibly valuable. She becomes impossible to impress with shallow effort. She stops responding to crumbs. She stops giving chances to men who show up only when it's convenient for them. She begins expecting consistency, maturity, and genuine emotional investment, not because she's demanding, but because she finally understands the difference between being chosen and being used. Her standards rise naturally, not out of bitterness, but out of experience. She's lived through situations where she accepted less than she deserved, and she promised herself she would never allow that to happen again. She develops the ability to read energy better than words. She can instantly sense when someone is approaching her with intentions that are unclear or half hearted. She pays attention to what a man does, not what he says. If he makes excuses instead of plans, she notices. If he disappears when she needs emotional support, she notices. If he tries to rely on charm or attraction alone, she notices. A woman who has gone through emotional seasons alone becomes deeply attuned to the behavior patterns that reveal who someone truly is beneath the excitement of early connection. She refuses to be fooled twice by the same type of man. And the beauty of her selective nature is that it's not about perfection, it's about alignment. She no longer entertains men who don't match the lifestyle she's worked so hard to build. She's not impressed by material things, by surface level compliments, or by temporary effort designed to win her attention. She looks for emotional intelligence, for communication that feels honest, for a man who respects her time and her boundaries. She wants someone who shows up consistently, not someone who only shows interest when she pulls away. Her standards have become a reflection of her growth, her self respect, and the peace she refuses to sacrifice. She also becomes highly protective of her time. A woman who has built a fulfilling single life understands its value. She has routines she loves. She has hobbies that excite her. She has goals she's actively pursuing. She's not willing to rearrange her entire world for someone who isn't offering something meaningful. If a man wants a place in her life, he has to earn it by showing dedication, honesty, and emotional stability. She has learned that giving access too quickly leads to disappointment, so she allows connections to develop slowly, naturally, and intentionally. And there's another truth: her high standards intimidate men who are not ready for maturity. Some will call her picky. Some will say she's too hard to win. But the men who say that are usually the ones who expect women to settle for the bare minimum. The right kind of man doesn't complain about her standards. He aligns with them, he appreciates them, he respects the strength it took her to rebuild herself. He understands that her selectiveness isn't about proving she's better. It's about protecting the life she's fought to create. What really makes her standards powerful is that she applies them to herself too. She doesn't expect something from a man that she hasn't built within her own life. She shows up as someone who is emotionally grounded, responsible, and self aware. She communicates clearly. She listens deeply. She doesn't play games. She doesn't manipulate. She doesn't pretend to be someone she's not. Her standards are not a test, they are a mirror that reflects the kind of relationship she is ready for: stable, respectful, and emotionally mature. And when she finally decides to give someone a chance, she does it wholeheartedly, but only when that person has shown that he genuinely values her. She no longer opens her heart because she's lonely or afraid of missing out. She opens it because she feels safe, because she feels seen, because she feels respected, because she knows that this man understands the level of woman she has become. Her standards are the gatekeepers of her peace, and by honoring them, she ensures her heart will only open to someone truly deserving. As the years pass without a relationship, a woman begins to build something inside herself that many overlook at first glance: an unshakable independence that becomes the foundation of her confidence, her peace, and her emotional clarity. This independence isn't loud or rebellious. It doesn't come from anger or from giving up on love. It comes from learning how to live, grow, and flourish without relying on anyone else to complete her. She becomes a whole person on her own, and that changes everything about the way she loves, the way she chooses, and the way she responds to anyone trying to enter her life. She becomes capable of handling her own problems, making her own decisions, and building her own path forward. She stops waiting for someone to show up and make things easier. Instead, she becomes her own source of stability. She learns to calm herself during chaos, to comfort herself during sadness, and to motivate herself during difficult times. This emotional self reliance is rare, powerful, and incredibly attractive because it means she isn't looking for a man to fix her or save her. She's looking for someone to grow with, not someone to depend on. This shift in independence makes her naturally more confident. She stops doubting herself the way she once did. She stops craving approval. She stops allowing someone else's behavior to dictate her mood or her worth. She realizes that she can create the life she wants with or without a relationship, and because she has built her own happiness from the ground up, she refuses to let anyone jeopardize it with inconsistency or emotional carelessness. Her independence becomes her shield, not to block love, but to block anyone who comes with low effort or unclear intentions. She also starts valuing her personal freedom more. She gets used to making her own plans, following her own goals, and structuring her life around what matters to her. She begins to enjoy the space she has created for her own dreams. And the more she builds, the harder it becomes for anyone to simply walk into her life and distract her from her purpose. A man can only stay in her world if he respects her path, supports her ambitions, and understands that she will not give up her individuality to fit into someone else's comfort. And her independence doesn't make her cold, it makes her peaceful. She doesn't need drama to feel alive. She doesn't need constant reassurance to feel loved. She doesn't need someone's presence to feel secure. Her peace comes from within, from years of self reflection, healing, and growth. This inner peace becomes the standard for the type of relationship she's willing to pursue. If a man brings chaos, she steps back. If he brings uncertainty, she creates distance. If he brings emotional imbalance, she protects herself. She refuses to let anyone disrupt the harmony she fought to create. What makes her independence so powerful is that it transforms the way men perceive her. She becomes a woman they admire, a woman they respect, a woman they cannot manipulate or control. She becomes the type of woman who inspires a man to level up, to communicate better, to be more consistent, to show real effort. She is not a challenge, she is an invitation for a man to become better. A woman who's been alone for a long time also develops a deeper understanding of love. She knows that real love is partnership, not possession. She knows that connection is built through respect, not pressure. She knows that love is not measured by how much she sacrifices, but by how much both people grow together. Her independence allows her to enter a relationship from a place of strength, not fear. And when she finally decides to let someone into her life, she does so not because she needs him, but because she chooses him, a choice rooted in confidence, clarity, and genuine desire. As time goes on and a woman remains without a relationship, she begins to master something most people never fully understand. She becomes deeply aware of the kind of love she truly deserves. She no longer settles for potential. She no longer gets attached to promises. She no longer pours her heart into situations that don't pour anything back into her. She gains clarity not from books, not from advice, but from living through emotional storms, healing from old wounds, and finally learning how to recognize the difference between real connection and temporary comfort. She becomes the guardian of her own heart, not because she fears love, but because she finally respects herself enough to wait for the right kind. This clarity helps her see beyond charm, beyond surface attraction, beyond the excitement of early affection. She starts paying attention to emotional stability, to effort, to communication, to how a man treats her when he's tired, stressed, or challenged. She watches how he responds to her boundaries. She notices how he handles conflict. She sees whether he brings peace or chaos into her life. A woman who has taken time away from relationships becomes incredibly aware of these things because she has lived through the consequences of ignoring them. She no longer lets chemistry blind her to character. She becomes more honest with herself, too. She stops romanticizing situations that are clearly inconsistent. She stops believing that she can fix or change someone. She stops trying to decode mixed signals because she already knows that someone who truly wants her won't confuse her. A woman who understands her worth refuses to chase clarity. She expects it. She refuses to settle for almost love, almost effort, almost commitment. Her clarity demands something real, something steady, something emotionally nourishing. And in this wisdom, she also becomes softer, not in a weak way, but in a healed way. She realizes that love should not feel like walking on eggshells. It should not feel like begging for attention. It should not feel like questioning her value. True love feels safe. True love feels steady. True love feels like two people showing up for each other without games or power struggles. She becomes open to this kind of love, but she will not entertain anything that falls short of it. Her heart is open, but only to someone who can meet her where she is. What's even more powerful is that she learns to trust timing rather than pressure. She doesn't cling to the idea that she's running out of time. She doesn't panic when people around her enter relationships. She doesn't compare her journey to anyone else's. She knows her love story doesn't have to match society's timeline. Her clarity gives her patience, the kind that comes from knowing that rushing into the wrong relationship is far worse than waiting for the right one. She begins to believe that real love requires the right person, the right energy, and the right moment, and she is willing to wait for that alignment. Because of this clarity, she also becomes incredibly intentional with who she lets close. She doesn't bond quickly, she doesn't attach easily. She observes, she evaluates, she takes her time. She understands that emotional access is a privilege, not a right. And the man who eventually earns that privilege will receive a woman who is deeply loving, loyal, and emotionally present, not because she needs him, but because she has chosen him carefully. This is why when she finally gives her heart again, it means something. It carries weight, it carries depth, it carries commitment. She does not love halfway. She does not love conditionally. She's not love with fear. She loves with wholeness because she had taken the time to become whole on her own. Her clarity ensures that her next relationship won't be built on confusion or insecurity, but on mutual respect, effort, and genuine connection. In the end, she doesn't just find love, she finds the right love because she refused to settle for anything less.